Journey to DTM in Pathways, Tracy Green. Over to you, Tracy.
Thank you, Carl. Oh, gee, I hope you haven't created high expectations. Right, I'm sharing my screen. Can I please get a thumbs up that everybody can see my screen in presentation mode? Thumbs up. Awesome. Yes, so pathways, the path to achieving your DTM. There are differences between this and the legacy system. So what I aim to do is, number one, let's look at a high level view. We're then going to look at the 6 steps to getting your DTM. The key thing from this presentation is the actual DTM project and the resources that come with it to help support you in achieving your DTM. And then, of course, we'll conclude with a reminder of what you're going to need to do to get to your DTM. Let's look at a pictorial view. For those people who really love the visuals, and there are a whole host of different pictorial views that you can get on the internet or via Toastmasters International. This gives you that picture of what you're going to need to achieve. This is exactly the same principle as the legacy systems diagram, which had the communication paths and the leadership paths leading to a DTM. So this is now the pathways path. So we're going to break this down so you can see the steps that you'll need to take to go from starting your path to getting your DTM. Number one, you need to complete 2 paths. That is, go all the way through. So if you listen to Michael's presentations, he's given you an oversight on paths themselves, very specifically leadership, but he gave you the details of the 5 levels. You need to complete 2 complete paths. When you're finished those paths, you are then on track to be able to undertake the DTM project. But things that you also need to think about that you can do concurrently. So even though you can see that I have lined these up as if they are sequential, they're not. I complete my 2 paths, but at the same time, I could have been serving as a club officer. If I've completed 12 months as a club officer, that will go towards me achieving my DTM. I can also serve as a club mentor or a club coach. So you choose either or. These can also be done concurrently. I need to serve as a club sponsor or conduct a speechcraft or a youth leadership program. Again, these can all be done concurrently. Plus, I need to serve as a district officer and complete my term. Again, they could all be done concurrently, not sequentially. You could have a stack of all the activities that you're doing. But for you to be able to complete your DTM project, what you have to have, so I've taken a snapshot of mine. Once I've completed these 2 paths, you can see here I've got 2 paths, and looking under my base camp, my profile, paths and learning, and I've sorted on the completed tab. And I have 2 paths that are in there that will go towards me achieving the DTM and pathways. Once these are completed and have been processed by your base camp manager, I then submit an email to Toastmasters International requesting the DTM project. So you can see over here, I now have a picture of my active projects within Paths and Learnings for myself, and I have been now allocated a distinguished Toastmasters path. You won't see that in Basecamp until you have completed those 2 paths and your Basecamp manager has processed them. Because Toastmasters International need to see in your record that there are 2 completed paths. Then they will process allocating this path, this new path, in your Basecamp path and learnings. So, I'm now ready to undertake my DTM. Let's go into the deep dive of a DTM project. If you've heard in Michael's presentation, and you've probably experienced it yourself in other paths, There are lots of projects, small projects, large projects, high performance leadership projects. So you may already have an oversight or an understanding of being in the project space. For a DTM project, they follow the same principles. Number one, it has to have a clear purpose. When you're thinking about the project you want to undertake, it needs to benefit an organization. It doesn't have to be Toastmasters. It could be another voluntary organization. It could be your place of work. It could be a sporting institute that you're a member of. Your project, though, however, needs to be of a benefit to that organization. So your outcome is going to be providing them with either a change, a guidance. It could even be a fundraising activity, but it needs to have a benefit to an organization. When you think about a project is not just one individual. A project is always a collective. There is a team. If I think about my working environment, I have business analysts, I have developers, developing depending on what the programs we are using. I could have several programmers because it could have different levels in the systems. I will have testers, and I will usually have a coordinator who helps with the administration. All of these individuals or groups of people contribute significantly to the project, but they will contribute their skill sets, their areas of expertise. So when you're thinking about developing the team that you're going to utilize for your DTM project, think about, okay, what's the organization that I'm wanting this benefit to serve? Then who are the people that I can have on my team that are going to help support that? Oh, I want to look for skill sets that are going to add value for me to A, grow, B, complete my project successfully. So have that mindset before you even undertake selecting those individuals. This is all about your planning. Your planning starts from the get-go. As soon as you decide, yes, I am ready to do my DTM project, I've completed my 2 paths, and I'm going to submit my request to Toastmasters International to kick it off. Think about, right from that get-go, what's my objective? What am I really wanting to achieve? Then start thinking about who are the people that I can draw upon that are going to be able to provide support and levels of expertise. I certainly made my list. I'm in the middle of my project. I have a team of 4. They're bringing very different levels of expertise, some from within Toastmasters and some from outside of Toastmasters, especially technology. So if you've got technology that you're keen to add into your project, having someone with a lot of technological expertise is advantageous. Otherwise, you're adding another dimension to your growth. And I certainly didn't want the stress of trying to learn a new platform at the same time as trying to undertake what I want to achieve in my project. So I decided that this is where, choosing your team, leading your team, and delegating becomes incredibly important. If you're like me, that you're quite independent and you think, I can do it myself, and you're like a ram at the gate and you're like, I'll just charge. I'm just going to get going. Well, sometimes you've got to step back and you've got to realize, so number one, you don't need to do it all yourself. Number 2, there are people out there who have expertise to add value to what you're trying to achieve. And number 3, when you're working with a team, I personally find it's incredibly rewarding because what it does is it creates a sense of camaraderie. It creates a sense of a unified, a cohesive, working cog of parts that have their own unique contribution, but as a whole, it's a thing of beauty, especially when you're getting close to the outcome that you're wanting to achieve. So really thinking about your team and how they're going to add value and allow you to grow and achieve your results is very important. But leading your team is the key element of your role in undertaking a DTM project, because it's about drawing upon all the things, all the building blocks that you've already established and the 2 paths that you've completed. It's like bringing all of this to a culmination of a growth opportunity for you to draw upon the skill sets that you have already gained. And leadership is one of those. So leading your team, leading by example, is incredibly important. And then what you're going to do when you lead your team is collectively you're going to look at an ethical framework, because you need to be aligned. If you're not aligned with an ethical framework of what your objective is, then you know that there are going to be risks to fragmenting within the project itself. So think about, if honesty is an ethical element to a framework that drives you, but within the framework of your project, you decide that you're going to allow dishonesty within it. For me, that is the phrase I like to draw upon is called cognitive dissonance. And this is where I have knowledge for something, I have an expectation of something, but the behavior is the opposite. That in itself means you're going to end up with a fragmented process. So ensuring everybody's aligned with an ethical framework is very important in ensuring that you have a cohesive unit when it comes to your project. And it also needs to align with the organization's goals themselves. Yeah. Because if it doesn't align with the organization's goals and it doesn't align with your own ethical framework, then I don't know that the benefit that you're wanting to realize can come to fruition. So I think ensuring that there is an ethical framework right at the get-go when you develop the team. And for those people who have not had a lot of experience in developing teams, there is, I don't know if you heard of the frames about the storming, the forming, storming, norming. These are elements that are very natural in building a team, to get a team working together, because if you've not worked together beforehand, there are elements you're not going to know about each other. I need to know whether or not you're a detail person or whether you're a high level person, because how I communicate to you is going to bring the best out for me and you as a team member. So for myself, for example, I know the feedback that I get is I'm all about brevity. Uh, you don't need to write it down. It's in my head. I can tell you what I need you to do. But for those people who need detail, that type of working or operating rhythm, that's not going to assist them. And so understanding in the establishment of the team, I think if you look at a project, the team is your core. If your team is not well thought out, and if you're not really allowing the team to evolve and grow and learn about each other's strengths, learn about everybody else's communication style, then you have risks of, I don't want to use the word failure, but there are risks that, it's not necessarily going to be as rewarding an experience as working with a team could be. So put a lot of thought when you first start thinking about this project. Not only the benefit, but the team itself, I think, will ensure that you are on a path to success and enjoying undertaking a DTM project. But you've created your team. You've then got to create a vision. So when you're thinking about your benefit, what ultimately are you wanting? What do you see as your vision to benefit the organization that you have in mind? Once you've made that decision on what your vision is, part of the requirement of undertaking your DTM project is presenting a 5 to 7 minute speech to your club. What is that vision? For those people who have undertaken HPL projects, you'd be well versed in presenting the 5 to 7 minute speech on your vision. So it follows the same principle. What am I wanting to achieve? How am I going to get there? Once you've done that, you set out your goals. And I think Michael also mentioned about the value of SMART goals. So we still want to follow the same principles on any project. When you're setting the goals, make sure that they are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. If these are all mapped out, documented, and agreed upon when you're building that vision, then you're not going to lose sight of your objective, of the benefit that you're wanting to attain. So setting goals is incredibly important. Once you have that, then comes the planning phase. I'm just going to jump over to the resources. Don't worry, you get plenty of resources once you're given access to your DTM project in your Paths and Learning on Basecamp. You will see that you get given a checklist. This is where you get an opportunity to document what you need to do step by step. You then get to plan out at a high-level overview before you drill down to a project plan. For those people who've worked in projects, the plan is critical. This is where you're setting yourself your schedule. You're saying that I'm going to be doing this step, and this is the time period. This is who's going to be doing it, which is going to lead to this step. I'll then do this step. This requires the step to be completed, or this can run independently. So having a project plan to create a schedule and your timeline is very important, because that is what helps keep you on track. The next point that we had here on our deep dive list of things that we need to do is when we've finished our project and we're ready to either deliver its benefits or put it into fruition, one of the things that we do is we reflect. As a leader of a team in undertaking a project, the way that you get your feedback is from your team members themselves. You've probably heard about a 360-degree evaluation. So I certainly know in the workforce, we have 360-degree evaluations that we use with our peers and our managers and from people outside of our department. What that does is it actually gives you insight into you as a person, you and your role, and how you manage the team, and whether or not, I'd like to think that the feedback that you get is whether or not the purpose was met. Were you set up for success? Did you achieve the goals? Was there structure? Did your team members grow and gain from being members of your project? These are things that they have an opportunity to share with you when it comes to the 360 evaluation. But it doesn't stop there. You get your evaluation, then what you get to do is reflect. Just like the HBL project, you reflect, review, and reassess. We look at what the outcomes were. Did we achieve the benefits? Remember our original purpose statement and our vision. We've got to reflect to see whether or not we actually achieved what we set out to achieve. When we go through our reflection, we as a team, imagining you as part of this DTM project, we would all collectively reflect on our own learnings, and we would document those. Because the learnings are how we grow. It's your chance to reflect and go back and look at, if I had a chance to do any element of that project differently, what would I do differently? In my workspace, we call them PIRs. We call them project implementation reviews. And this is our opportunity for absolutely every single member of the team to have a voice, to share what they experienced and what they would do differently. You then look at those collectively, and then you weigh them to see which are the ones which would provide the most benefits to somebody else who is going to undertake that project. And the reason that you're doing this is not only for everyone's growth, because you're going to present another speech. You're going to present an 8 to 10 minute speech back to the club, just like you did in a HPL project, which is all about, did I achieve what I set out? Did my organization benefit? What was the experience of the team themselves? What were the lessons that we learned? And what would we do differently? So if you're looking at your deep dive to getting a DTM, number one, you need to make sure you've completed 2 paths. These 2 paths must be reflected in your paths and learning profile within Basecamp, and they must be completed based on your Basecamp manager acknowledging their completion. If they show in your completed, and you can, I don't know whether you can see, that is my complete tab. So I'm looking at paths that I have completed. If they are sitting in there, then you can request Toastmasters International give you access to the Distinguished Toastmasters project. And when they give you access, it'll appear in your Basecamp. Then when you have that, you'll follow the standard process for any single path. You will launch it. It will then open up your workbook in a pop-out, and then you will read through that workbook. The workbook details creating a project, identifying the benefits of the project, elements of developing a team, aspects of leading your team, the benefits of developing a plan, implementing a plan, following a plan, creating your vision, presenting your vision speech to a club, actually completing the project, going back with a 360 to your group, getting their feedback on their experiences, not only as a team member, but of you also as a leader. Then collectively you'll review. Then you'll present that final 8 to 10 minute speech. And hopefully when you do, you have grown, you have identified a benefit, and an organization has gained from that. But don't forget, even if you've completed that DTM project, you still need to serve as a club officer for 12 months, undertake a club mentor or a club coach role, serve as a club sponsor or conduct a speechcraft or a youth leadership, and serve as a district officer. When you have achieved all of those, you can then apply for your DTM. A picture is worth 1,000 words. This picture shows all the steps that are involved in going from being a member, starting your pathways journey, and achieving your DTM at the end. It's estimated that this will take you a minimum of 12 months if you're running things concurrently. And the reason it's a minimum of 12 months is you need to have achieved being a club officer for 12 months and a district officer for 12 months. On average, the time period is 2 years. For some, it can be longer. This is not time bound. But it is important that when you're thinking about setting yourself a goal of getting from start to a DTM, be realistic. Even at the beginning, before you're doing a DTM project, think about a SMART goal for yourself. In working through my paths, what is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely for me to complete all of these steps that I need to be able to get my Distinguished Toastmasters recognition in pathways. You can see there are similarities to the legacy system. The uniqueness, of course, is the 2 paths. I'm certainly hoping that from what Michael has already presented in undertaking a path, that has inspired you to think about, if you're undertaking one path, what maybe your second path could be. In summary, to get from start to a DTM, you need to complete 2 complete paths in pathways. You need to serve as a club officer for 12 months. You need to serve as a club coach or a club mentor. You need to serve as a, I've noticed that I've got club coach twice. I've identified my own typo. in the section where it says serve as a club coach, speechcraft, or youth leadership, that should say serve as a club sponsor. So you have different options. So if you think about those two steps, I can do either club coach or mentor. I can do either sponsor, speechcraft, or youth leadership. But I need to have served at least one of these. Plus, of course, serve as a district officer and complete your DTM. So club officers, you have the opportunity of 7 roles to support your club. Lots of choices. When it comes to district officers range from an area director, division director, all the way up to being the district director. But there are other supporting roles that are also recognised. The finance manager, the administrations manager. So there's several options that you can choose in serving as a district officer. Either way, when you're thinking about going from start to finish, it's really about you giving back. You grow when you give back. I give back when I'm a club officer, but I also grow in supporting my club members, and learning about the role in itself that I've taken up. And being a coach or a mentor, I gain skills and understanding about supporting a club. But I also give back, because I don't know about you, but the volunteering element of Toastmasters is the part I love. My absolute favorite role is the youth leadership. I just love the joy of seeing the growth in students when they see what they can go from and to. It's incredibly rewarding. And so I know that I gain a lot more than I give when I run a youth leadership. And the same when I'm running a district officer role. I've taken on another, and I am currently the M23 area director. Why? I learn all the time. Attending a club, I will learn something new. But I find giving back the most rewarding element. So your journey from start to a DTM project can be a growth for you and a growth opportunity for others. But most importantly, it should be an enjoyable journey, because there are a lot of people out there that you can ask for help. I'm going to move from a presentation into the Toastmasters meeting. Because I lost sight of what color I was up to. So well done. I can see I have the yellow card. Whew. I'm now ready for any questions anybody has before we get to the red. Otherwise, we can hold it for the next section. I can see a hand up for Jessica.
Hi, Tracy. I really enjoyed
Hi.
your presentation. How do we get involved with youth leadership program, and is anyone doing that now that we're online?
Great question. The youth leadership coordinator for our district is Kelly Vieira. I believe that's correct, Carl. She's still continuing on in that role?
To my knowledge, yes.
Yep. And so, Jessica, if you ever go to the D73 Toastmasters website, there is a tab for contacting district officers. And within that, you'll find that there is the email link for the youth leadership coordinator. So number one, I would suggest sending them an email telling them that you're interested. And then to answer your other half of the question, are they running them now? Unfortunately, the schools, I don't know if any schools are, so I'm not going to say that none are, because maybe some are, because schools are running Zooms. However, Kelly will be able to tell you if there are, in fact, any running in the Zoom online environment. If not, maybe it's a case of getting something ready for as soon as we can do face-to-face. Considering schools are going back, maybe they'll be open to a youth leadership. But it is incredibly rewarding, a lot of fun. I now have the red card, so I would like people to hold their questions, because if they're in the Q&A session, we're moving over to that. So please allow me to welcome back our Toastmaster, the awesome Carl Hughes DTM, and who of course is our Program Quality Director.